Dum dum. Hello, what's up? Gleb Alexandrov here for CreativeShrimp.com. Just wanted to share a time-lapse creation process of this cute little stone with you. That was created for Manu Jarvinen's project. I mean the Blender appreciation poster. Basically, the elevator pitch of this project was to gather 100 or even more Blender artists, educators, scientists, developers, and ask each one of them to model 1 hour sculpture of what Blender means to them. Something along these lines, and you can check more by following the link in the description because it's no longer a secret, as Manu told me. Okay, so I decided to sculpt a stone, and that doesn't mean that Blender means stones to me, although Blender rocks if you think about it. Maybe the first thing that I posted to YouTube was a creation process behind some stones, and I thought it would be fun to rehash this concept. So this is the time-lapse video. I'm not very familiar with this format, I hope you'll like it. As usually, I will accompany it with some ASMR content to make it a little bit more interesting. Or rather, I don't think it will help actually. So this sculpture had to take no longer than 1 hour. I took a lump of digital clay, enabled dynamic topology, picked the scrapes and peak brush, my favorite brush for such kind of hard surface / organic work, with chiseled edges and stuff like that. And you can see that I'm trying to define the hard edges, and then I'm using the clay tubes brush or just clay brush to break it up a little bit. Stones are very interesting to model. It's a nice mixture of hard surface and organic shapes. Striking the right kind of balance between these two types of shapes can be tricky, but it comes with practice like everything else, and once you enable the dynamic topology, it's pure fun, pure joy, because you no longer have to worry about the underlying topology and the polygonal density. It feels to me like a digital clay indeed. And even if you make tons of blunders, you can roll back and smooth these problematic areas out by holding the Shift key and drawing a few strokes. Once again, the scrapes and peak brush, especially with the trim checkbox enabled, allows you to sculpt these flat surfaces. And obviously, when it comes to hard surface side of modeling stones, rocks, limestones, whatever else of this kind, such functionality, such ability to flatten the surfaces and trim parts of the mesh is absolutely crucial. You just cannot make it without it. I remember times when ZBrush didn't have any kind of hard surface brushes, it was purely organic sculpting type of thing. And once the trim brushes were introduced, it was a quantum leap in terms of what you can do with digital clay, what you can do with digital sculpting in general. Out of a sudden, the door into the world of hard surface models was open. And now in Blender we have the scrapes and peak brush that behaves just like the trim brush and ZBrush. And you can use that to create beautiful stone-like shapes. It just takes 10,000 hours to get to the point where I can sculpt it with confidence, but never mind, I'm just kidding. It's almost as easy as it looks, and especially with the dynamic topology, it's easy peasy. Very gratifying process, very meditative process. Give it a shot if you haven't tried it. Once you get in that flow, it's as interesting as playing games. The same psychological mechanisms kick in. And I even remember the name of the scientist who coined the term flow to describe that state of mind, but I simply cannot pronounce it correctly. I think it's Csikszentmihalyi. I will put it on screen so you can correct me. And once again, the term is flow. It's very descriptive and relevant when it comes to gaming or to sculpting or any such kind of activities. Okay, now I'm definitely trying to nail down the lighting. First of all, I removed the background lighting, then added a bunch of area lights. Some of them are hot and some of them are of a cooler color, and that is called a complementary contrast. It can be a very pleasant color scheme, or at least contrasting, which is pleasant when it comes to composition. But you have to judge it on a case-by-case basis, obviously. Here you can see I have at least 3 main sources of light. Each one of them consists of some sub-sources. The key light or the dominant light, which is this orangey light. The sort of a rim light, which is bluish, but actually it looks like a second dominant light. Well, let's say that we have just side lighting here. from both sides. And on top of that we have very soft, very subtle fill light here to fill in the shadows, because otherwise the shadows will be pitch black. And after that I'm trying to make it look a little bit more interesting by adding a new bunch of stones in the composition, but in the end I made it look just like a giant stone phallus. Because let's be clear about it. And now I'm trying to play with the shaders. First of all, I'm implementing the normal based enhancements. In this case, it means that I'm mixing some other color based on the surface normal, and I think about it as an additional pass of lighting rather than material. That's weird, I know. Basically, I'm using the surface normals to guide the darkening or the brightening up of the surface, you know, as if it's influenced by the invisible source of light outside the physically based reality of the cycle's lights. I'm trying to not overdo this effect and keep it very subtle, just to introduce a little touch of non-photorealistic look, a little bit of stylized look into the mix. And the next thing that I'm trying to do is I want to emphasize the edges. I'm using the pointiness attribute to guide this effect. The stone has a pretty interesting shapes. I just want to unpack it with the help of the edge detection and edge brightening. I'm using the red color just to see the effect, to be able to debug it. And then I'm just making the edges a little bit brighter than the regular tone. I think that the edge detection is particularly important in terms of selling the stony look. Without it, you would probably have to exaggerate the edges so much during the sculpting process, just for the sake of making it visible in the final render. Because without this edge emphasizing filter, so to speak, it doesn't give the viewer the important clues to understanding the stone-like structures of this model. It's an excellent example of how modeling and shading go hand in hand. I think you can start a new religion on this foundation somehow. Call it singularity, I don't know. Whatever. A trinity of modeling, texturing, rendering. Could it be that Blender is called Blender because it somehow recognizes the interplay of all elements necessary to create 3D render? It's like everything is blended. You cannot untangle each element. What am I talking about? No idea. Just adding some texture and some bump. These are the tertiary details. I'm also trying to keep them subtle, so they don't break up the shape too much and work as a camouflage. What's really important is not allow the microscopic details to break up the secondary and, oh my goodness, the primary shapes, of course. Especially in the cases like this, where you aim at getting the non-photorealistic look, which is a little bit more minimal and more stylized, of course. And you just say using the shaders to emphasize and to unpack the geometry itself, because the thing that really matters is the interaction between light and geometry. Okay, and the last thing that I'm doing here is conjuring the new point of interest. I thought it would be kind of nice to add that extra oomph and extra magnet for the viewer's eye right in the center of the image. I'm painting the vertex color to be used as a mask for the new shader, and I'm going to play once again with the dumb complementary contrast. Yeah, I know that's a lazy way of approaching art of any kind, but when it works, right? So I'm blending in yet another shader, a mission shader to be exact. To make it stand out, I will give it a bright blue color. And by the way, does it look like a rune word of some kind? Does it add an extra magic? I think so. Without it, it's just a stone, and now it's a runestone. You know the importance of the extra things like this, and that's pretty much it. At this stage of the process, I hit the time limit, so I had to stop. So I just rendered it and added some glare. That was my take on the Blender Appreciation poster, the crowdsourcing project by Manu Jarvinen. Once again, according to Manu, the point of this project is to model a 1-hour sculpture of what Blender means to you. Even something simple like a cube is alright. For more details, check the link in the description. My name's Gleb Alexandrov. See you.